Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're heading back, way back, about 70 million years.
Late Cretaceous, yeah, a fascinating time.
And we're zoning in on a particular horned dinosaur called Bravoceratops.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the original paper describing it, some later research. Basically, we want to figure out what makes this thing tick.
No.
What's the story, and why is there still debate?
Exactly. Bravoceratops. It's a ceratopsid, one of the chasmosaurines. Those are the ones with the long frills.
Right?
And this one was roaming around what's now Texas roughly 70 million years ago.
And it's kind of rare, right? Not like Triceratops where we have tons of fossils.
Yeah.
This is known from just one specimen.
That's right. TMM 460151. It's housed down at the Texas Memorial Museum in Austin. It's basically fragments of a skull, but, well, that's what we got.
And where exactly did they find it? You mentioned Texas, but more specifically.
Big Bend National Park. And interestingly, in the lowest rocks of the Javelina Formation there.
Okay, why is that interesting? The lowest part.
Well, because ceratopsid fossils, horned dinosaur fossils, they're actually pretty rare in that whole formation. So finding Bravoceratops there gives us a really valuable snapshot of the dinosaur diversity in that specific place and time. It was a bit unexpected.
Huh. So, like finding a puzzle piece you didn't even know was missing.
Kind of, yeah. It was found at a spot called the Hippie Walk geologic locality.
Hippie walk. Yeah.
Yeah. And the bones themselves, they were kind of scattered over maybe 10 square meters.
Scattered, so not a nice, complete skeleton waiting to be dug up.
No, definitely not. They were found in sandy conglomerates, and the larger bones showed signs of erosion, wear, and tear.
Ah, so maybe washed down a river or something?
That's the thinking. It suggests what paleontologists call a river lag deposit. Basically, imagine a river flowing, carrying along sediment and, well, bits of dead animals. Only the tougher, heavier stuff, like these bone fragments, would settle out and get left behind.
Makes sense. So only the durable bits survive the trip.
Precisely.
Okay, let's talk about that name. Bravoceratops. It has a ring to it.
It does, doesn't it? Bravoceratops, wild horn face.
Wild horn face. Nice. Where does the Bravo part come from?
It's from the Rio Grande. The Mexican name for it is Rio Bravo del Norte, the wild river of the north.
Ah.
So that's the Bravo. And then keras and ops, the Greek words for horn and face. Very fitting for a Texas horned dinosaur.
Definitely.
Right.
And the species name, Polyphemus. That sounds familiar.
It should. It's from Greek mythology. Polyphemus was the Cyclops.
The one-eyed giant. Okay, why name a dinosaur after him?
Yeah.
Did it have one horn?
Not exactly one horn, but the researchers who named it back in 2013, Stephen Wick and Thomas Lehman, they noticed this feature on the fossil frill, the median parietal bar, that's the bone running down the middle of the back of the frill. There was this symmetrical kind of tear-shaped depression right on the top surface, smack in the middle.
Okay.
And they thought it looked a bit like a single eye socket, the Cyclops eye.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Did they think it actually was an eye socket?
No. But they did speculate, maybe, just maybe, it supported a small horn, like a little bony bump and an epiparietal that just didn't get fossilized.
Interesting. So that unique Cyclops eye depression was one of the key things setting it apart initially.
Yes, that was one of the proposed unique features, what we call autapomorphies. That and the overall shape of that median parietal bar. They described it as sort of fanning out towards the back, splaying out with a smooth edge, not notched or indented.
So unique frill center, potential missing hornlet, and a fan-like shape. That was the initial picture.
That was the initial take, yeah, based on that fragmented skull.
But science being science, that wasn't the end of the story.
Not at all. Fast forward to 2020. Different researchers, Denver Fowler and Elizabeth Friedman Fowler, they took another look.
And they had a different idea.
A radically different idea, actually. They suggested that the main piece, that median parietal bar, it might have been reconstructed upside down.
Upside down? Whoa, how would they figure that out?
Well, they looked closely at the bone texture, the way the edges seemed to fit or not fit with other potential frill pieces. Their interpretation was that flipping it over made more anatomical sense.
Okay, hang on. If it was upside down, what does that do to those unique features? The fan shape, the Cyclops eye.
Exactly. If it's upside down, then that fan shape might not be real, or at least not unique. And that teardrop depression, it might just be, part of the normal underside structure, not a special top feature.
So their argument was if you flip it, the uniqueness kind of disappears.
Pretty much. They concluded that Bravoceratops might lack truly distinct features compared to other known chasmosaurines.
which could mean...
It could mean it's a nomen dubium, a doubtful name, basically suggesting the genus isn't valid because the original specimen isn't distinct enough.
So the fossil might belong to an already known genus, maybe? We just wouldn't call it Bravoceratops anymore?
That was the implication of their argument, yes. A major challenge to its status.
Wow. Okay, so controversy brewing. But did that stick? Or is there another twist?
Another twist. Just a year later, 2021, Sebastian Dahlmann and some colleagues published a response.
Defending Bravoceratops.
Defending it, yes. They argued it is a valid genus. And interestingly, they didn't just re-argue the old points. They brought in new comparisons, especially with another recently named dinosaur.
Oh, which one?
A dinosaur called Ceratopsian, also from the late Cretaceous Southwest, but found in New Mexico.
Okay, so neighbors, relatively speaking. What similarities did Dahlmann's team see between Bravoceratops and Ceratopsian?
They pointed out a few things they argued were shared between these two, but distinct from other chasmosaurines. One was this bony flange, like a little shelf, located in front of the quadrate bone that's near the jaw joint and close to the cheekbones, the jugulars.
A flange, okay.
Both Bravoceratops and Ceratopsian seem to have a pretty large one there, which isn't typical for other related dinosaurs.
Interesting. What else?
The epijugals. That's the little hornlet that sticks out from the cheek. In both of these dinosaurs, Dahlmann's team argued it's longer than it is tall and it's quite sharp-tipped. Different from the chunkier ones you see in some later chasmosaurines.
So more subtle features maybe than that big frill-shaped debate.
Exactly. Things that might be less prone to, say, distortion during fossilization or variation between individuals. They also looked at the brow horns.
Yes, the main horns.
In both Bravoceratops and Ceratopsian, the brow horns are sort of compressed side to side, so taller than they are wide if you cut through them.
Okay.
They share that trait and also share it with a slightly more distant relative called Juraceratops, and one more, the lower bar of the frill, the squamosal bone part. In cross-section, it's kind of D-shaped in both Bravoceratops and Ceratopsian. It's a bit similar to another related genus, Velociraptor, but distinct from many others.
So Dahlmann's team built a case based on this suite of shared, more detailed features linking Bravoceratops and Ceratopsian.
Precisely. Arguing these details override the concerns about the potential upside-down reconstruction of that one central frill piece.
Okay, but they are still considered separate genera, Bravoceratops and Ceratopsian. Now, what about Velociraptor? You mentioned it has a similar frill bar shape. How do they differ?
Good question. Yes, they are kept separate. Bravoceratops is distinct from Velociraptor because Velociraptor has these famously enormous brow horns. Bravoceratops are large, but not on that scale.
Got it. And versus Ceratopsian?
The key differences there are that Bravoceratops seems to have larger brow horns than Ceratopsian, but a smaller epijugal, that cheek hornlet.
So subtle but distinct differences in proportions and sizes of these various horns and flanges.
Exactly. Enough in Dahlmann et al.'s view to keep them as separate but closely related genera.
Okay, so putting it all together, where does this leave Bravoceratops in the bigger picture? The Chasmosaurian family tree. Is it considered primitive, advanced?
It's generally seen as sort of an intermediate chasmosaurine, meaning it's considered more derived, more evolutionarily advanced than the earliest ones like Chasmosaurus itself, but probably less derived than the real latecomers like Triceratops or Torosaurus. It sits somewhere in that middle branch with dinosaurs like potentially Pentaceratops or Anchiceratops.
And its relationship with Velociraptor. The first paper suggested they might be sister taxa, closest relatives. Does that still hold up?
It's been debated.
Yeah.
That initial 2013 analysis did suggest that. Some later studies have found similar results, grouping Bravoceratops closely with Velociraptor, but others have placed it differently, sometimes a bit more basal, sometimes a bit closer to other groups.
Why the uncertainty? Just the fragmented nature of the fossil?
That's a big part of it. When you only have parts of a skull and there's some controversy over how those parts fit together, it can make placing it confidently in these complex evolutionary analyses, these phylogenetic trees, quite tricky.
A wildcard taxon, I think I read something.
Exactly. That's what it's sometimes called. Including, it could sometimes make the overall results of the analysis less stable, less certain.
Right.
which is why Fowler and Friedman Fowler, even though their analysis actually did initially place it near Pentaceratops and as sister to Coelurosaurops, ultimately decided to exclude it because they felt it was too problematic.
But Dahlman's study in 2021, the one linking it firmly to Ceratops,
Yeah.
this seems to provide a stronger anchor point.
It really does. They made a compelling case that Bravoceratops isn't just some random intermediate form, but it shares specific traits with other chasmosaurines from the same time and, crucially, the same region.
The Southwest.
The Southwest, yeah. Southwestern U.S. and northern Mexico. They basically established Bravoceratops as part of a distinct southwestern group, a clade, that evolved uniquely in that area. Its closest relatives, under this view, are Coelurosaurops from Mexico and Ceratops from New Mexico.
That paints a really interesting picture of regional evolution, doesn't it? Like this pocket of related horned dinosaurs developing their own unique variations.
It really does. It suggests geographic isolation or specific environmental pressures in that region might have driven the evolution of this particular lineage of chasmosaurines.
So wrapping this up, Bravoceratops, the wild horn face, started with a bang
Yeah.
based on a potentially cyclopean frill,
Mm-hmm.
then faced a challenge questioning its very existence,
Right?
but seems to have found its place, not detailed comparisons, as a key member of this unique southwestern horned dinosaur club.
That sums it up pretty well. It's a great example of how science works,
Yeah.
New data, new interpretations, refining our understanding piece by piece, even controversial pieces.
Absolutely. It really highlights the dynamic nature of paleontology. What seemed clear can become debated, and then new evidence can lead to a new consensus.
And it underscores just how much diversity was likely out there, even in the final stages of the dinosaurs' reign.
So here's something to chew on. This whole back and forth about Bravoceratops, based on fragments and reconstructions, it really makes you think about the challenges of reading the deep past. How confident can we be about any reconstruction when the evidence is incomplete? And what future discoveries, maybe more complete fossils of Bravoceratops or its relatives, might completely shift our understanding yet again?
It's always possible. That's what keeps it exciting.
Definitely something to ponder.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.